we're talking about self-discipline, we want to know what it means. First of all, it means complete control over both the body and the mind. Complete control. Now, that doesn't mean changing your mind or your body. It means controlling it. For instance, the great emotion of sex gets more people into trouble than all the other emotions combined. And yet it's the most creative, the most profound, and the most divine of all of the emotions. It's not the emotion that gets people into trouble. It's their lack of controlling it and directing it, transmuting it, which they would be readily able to do if they had self-discipline. So it is with other faculties of the body and the mind. It's not that you have to change completely. It's just that you have to be the master. You have to be in control. You have to recognize the things that you must do in order to have sound health and peace of mind. It also means the development of daily habits by which the mind is kept busy in connection with the things and the circumstances that one desires and off the circumstances one does not desire. It means that you will not accept or submit to the influence of any circumstance or thing you do not desire. Nothing at all. Don't submit to it. You may have to tolerate it. You may have to recognize it's there, but you don't have to submit. That is, you don't have to let it conquer you. You don't have to admit that it's stronger than you are. But on the other hand, you assert that you're stronger than it because you're not going to submit to it. And you can give your imagination a wide range of operation there as to what these things are that you're going to have to deal with, but you're not going to submit to them. I'm not going to mention them. Might get too personal. It means that you will build a three-wall protection around yourself so no one will ever know all about you or what goes on in your mind. Isn't that an interesting thing? Would you want anybody in this world, anybody, to know all about you?
No.
Who would? If you're in your right mind, you wouldn't. Would you want anybody to know all that you think about him? I'm sure you wouldn't. Well, there are a lot of people who just make the mistake of letting anybody that wants to know everything that goes on in their mind. All you have to do is start them talking. You know, these people who start their mouths to working and then go off and leave them? You know the type I'm talking about. They just get them started, and believe me, you find out all about them, good and bad. J. Edgar Hoover, with whom I did some professional work on a great many occasions and still do at times, told me once that the fellow who he's investigating is the best help to him of all because he gets more information from the guy that he's tracing than from all other sources combined. I said, why? He says, well, because he talks too damn much. Yeah, that's his exact reply. Tell me what a man fears, and I will tell you how to master him. The very minute you find out what anybody fears, you'll know exactly how to control him if you're foolish enough to want to control anybody on that basis. I don't want to control anybody on fear. Not at all. If I control anybody, I want it on the basis of what?
Love.
Of course, on no other basis. I wouldn't have any control over anybody on any other basis than that he wants to give me control of him. The average person talks too much for his own good.
Probably everyone attains some degree of success in something, but only those who acquire the habit of turning the flame of enthusiasm into a white heat of desire ever attain truly great success in anything. The ninth principle of your right to be rich is enthusiasm, one of our greatest assets, the force within us that perpetually spurs us onward to do our best. What is it really? One dictionary definition reads as follows, quote, an absorbing or controlling possession of the mind by any interest or pursuit, a lively interest, unquote. There's nothing at all wrong with that, but Dr. Hill adds something more to his definition of enthusiasm. As he defines it, it is nothing more and nothing less than faith in action. Now let's hear what else he has to say about this powerful principle. Dr. Hill.
We're now on the subject of enthusiasm, and I don't know a better time than to talk about enthusiasm than right now, because you seem to have been demonstrating quite a bit of it. First of all, the very first step in creating enthusiasm is based upon a burning desire. In other words, that's the starting of enthusiasm. And you'll have no trouble, and as a matter of fact, when you learn how to work yourself up into a state of a burning desire, you won't need the rest of the instructions on enthusiasm, because you've already got the last word in enthusiasm. When you want something real badly, you make up your mind to get it. You have that burning desire. It steps up your thinking processes. It whets your imagination so that your imagination goes to work and works out ways and means of your getting the thing you desire. That enthusiasm gives you a brighter mind. It makes you more alert to opportunities. You see opportunities that you never saw before when your mind has stepped up to that state of enthusiasm, to a burning desire for something definite. And next, there is active enthusiasm and passive enthusiasm. The active enthusiasm is more effective. Now, what do I mean by active and passive? I'll give you an illustration of passive enthusiasm. Henry Ford, for instance, was the most lacking in active enthusiasm of any man I have ever seen. I never heard him laugh but once in his life. When he shook hands with you, it was like taking hold of a piece of cold ham. You did all the shaking. He did nothing but stick his hand out and then take it back when you let loose of it. And in his conversation, there was no magnetism in his voice whatsoever. And there was no evidence of any shape, form, or fashion of his demonstrating active enthusiasm. Now, what kind of enthusiasm did he have? Because he must have had some to have such an outstanding major purpose and to have achieved it so successfully. It was inward. His enthusiasm was transmuted into his imagination and into his power of faith and into his personal initiative. He went ahead on his own initiative. He believed that he could do whatever he wanted to do. He kept himself alert and keen with applied faith through his enthusiasm, his passive enthusiasm, thinking inside of his own mind what it was he was going to do and all the joy he'd get out of doing it. I once asked him, this was long after he had arrived and had his problems whipped. I asked him if he ever wanted anything or wanted to do anything he couldn't do. He said, no, and then he qualified himself, not in recent years. He said in the early days, until he learned how to get or to do whatever he wanted to do, he couldn't answer in the affirmative. And I said, well, in other words, Mr. Ford, there isn't anything that you need or want or that you can't get. He said, that's right, that's correct. Well, I said, how do you know that's true? And how do you go about making sure that whatever you want to do, you know you're going to do it before you start? He said, well, for a long time, I've formed the habit of putting my mind on the can-do part of every problem. If I have a problem, there's always something I can do about it. Many things I can't do, but something I can do, and I start where I can do something. And he said, as I use up the can-do part of it, the no-can-do simply just vanishes. When I get to the river where I expected to have a bridge, I didn't need the bridge because the river was dry.